Welcome to Trailblazers Impact Podcast with inspiring stories of women. I'm Nan McKay, and Dee Dee Strum, my co-host, and I interview ordinary women who have lived extraordinary lives. The women we interview share their inspirational secrets and provide hope and guidance to women of all ages in similar circumstances. Trailblazers Impact chronicles struggles, successes, and the impact of lessons learned from seasoned professionals who have blazed a trail for others to follow. Trailblazers Impact Podcast is featured in the top 20 Trailblazers Trendsetters podcasts by FeedSpot and as one of the top 28 podcasts for women in their 20s by Pretty Progressive. Our website is trailblazersimpact.com, and you can contact us at hello@trailblazersimpact.com. Please follow us on our website and read our blogs while we share the stories. I attended the Outstanding Women's Venture Summit, which brought together experts from both sides of the investment table to share best practices, essential tips, and lessons learned. By national, local, and global resources were shared and discussed, along with trends and hot topics around gender investing. It also included a one-day intensive event aimed at equipping and connecting female founders and female funders. You can find more information about the summit by going to www.trailblazersimpact.com and clicking on the events page. Many of the investors and the businesswomen are featured in our podcasts. I would like to introduce you today to Brianna McDonald. Brianna is president of Keiretsu Forum Northwest, and I'd like to start out, Brianna, by asking a question. How did your early life affect who you are today?
Well, thanks for having me here. So I have spent most of my life overcoming internal barriers that I created from what I had learned in my early childhood. My parents relocated to a new city when I was 7 years old, and upon leaving that city and starting in a new one at a new school, I had a very difficult time acclimating into that new environment, and as a result, dealt with a tremendous amount of bullying over 7 years. That was pretty extreme at different cases and scenarios. In the 80s, bullying was dealt with a lot differently than it is today. And what ended up happening was my parents ended up leaving the state that they grew up in and relocating to Seattle, Washington, to provide me a new start.
Let's go back to those days for a minute. First of all, how old were you at that point when you were trying to get acclimated and it wasn't working?
Between 7 and 13.
Okay. And when you say bullying, tell me what you mean by that.
Well, there was a lot of name calling and making fun of, a lot of exclusion. There was physical abuse that also occurred. My mom tells me stories. I actually don't remember a lot of it. I've blocked it out of my mind. But one girl on the walk home from school, and I did walk a mile to and from school because they didn't have bus service. I know that sounds really old-fashioned, but they did that in the 80s. Ripped a necklace off of me. One person, there was a boy I liked, and they played a whole joke saying that he liked me, and 2 days later I found out it was a complete joke. Things like that. The culprit was 5 girls held me underwater in a lake, and while I was playing a game with some friends, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Did they pick on you because you were the new kid, or what was going on?
I never really knew. I didn't understand. So I would assume it was because I was the new kid. But I never really got it.
Now here you are today, a very together person with her own business, doing great. And yet you started back here and it had some effect on who you are today.
It affects me still every day when I go out into the world. But what I really encourage people to do is to overcome their own obstacles. I'm really good at dishing out suggestions to people and really talking about my story and what that is. When it comes to me following my own suggestions some of the time, that's a little bit more difficult. But I deal with imposter syndrome on a daily basis, especially working in an industry that is dominated by men. But I show up unapologetically and go do what I need to do and support entrepreneurs and my investors, and usually go home and with the confidence of my few good friends, talk with them and help get over different things I'm dealing with.
So is it self-doubt? Is it fear?
Some of it is self-doubt. Some of it is that I don't necessarily think I deserve what I have. It's really funny. There is fear. I do a lot of ruminating on, like, I shouldn't have said that type of talk in my mind. I'm not politically correct at all. I talk like a sailor. I'm really honest. And I'm very opinionated about certain things. And so sometimes, because I don't fit that mold of what you should look like as a woman business leader and approach it a little bit differently, I think that because I don't fit into one of those boxes, it affects me in different ways.
Well, maybe you think you don't look like you fit in one of the boxes, but I would not pick you out any different from anybody else that I have seen in this whole room of entrepreneurs today. So I think that's we look at ourselves maybe in a different way than other people look at us.
I hold myself to a very high standard of how I show up into the world.
So what is the imposter syndrome? I've never even heard of that.
Oh, imposter syndrome is really fascinating. It's basically like your mind and the self-talk that you have, that you're not actually supposed to be in that spot. So especially as entrepreneurs are going out there and as they're going and they're achieving these different goals and milestones and they're running that marathon to build their company, that they actually shouldn't be the one doing it, that it should be somebody else. And it's this self-talk monologue that, you're not the person to do it. It's just an interesting mindset that it's a lot of overcoming that, identifying when it can be useful. I don't necessarily think imposter syndrome is always a negative thing. There's always things that can be learned. And I'm very introspective in that way, finding how I can always do better. So understanding where those touch points come in, that imposter syndrome would be creeping in, identify them, not judge them, recognize them, and continue moving forward.
When you left the first school in the first area and went to a different place, how did that make a difference for you?
Well, it gave me a new sense of freedom of me to be who I could be. I made a plethora of poor choices because I had no idea on how to make friends or how to be accepted into the world of people. And so I ended up following a lot and doing what other people did, which wasn't always great. But through a series of many, many mistakes, was able to pull myself out and come out on the other end.
And when you look back, what do you think some of the positives of those experiences were?
Well, it gives me the ability to really understand people and who people are. There's a lot of individuals and a lot of leaders out there making decisions for many different people, especially in government, as we deal with homelessness or drug abuse or other different issues. And none of them have actually walked in their shoes and what actually goes on in that mindset and what that is to overcome that or what they're dealing with. And so I think it gives me a really good sense of people and being able to read people and understand different challenges they're facing or how I can help.
Do you think it gives you an inner strength
Absolutely. Yeah, I do.
to deal with more things that are adverse because you've been through it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, experience is everything. And you can sit in a classroom and you can read books and you can read studies and you can research, but until you've actually experienced life and that it's a journey and it's not about where you're going, that's really what gives you the power to be able to just have more consideration for others and being able to help them along the way.
How about your passions? What do you have a passion for?
I have many passions. I have passions for the arts. I have passions for innovation. I've been investing in early stage companies for 14 years. I have passion for passionate people who are out trailblazing and doing new things and helping to problem solve and get to market, finding new solutions and finding ways around the barriers, whether you're digging a tunnel and going underneath the barrier or scaling the wall and going over the top, whatever it is so much fun. And the one thing I would say about what I do every day is I never have a dull day in the office. There is always some interesting problem that I'm solving with some entrepreneur or an investor that's trying to make sense of a company to write a check.
So tell me about this business.
So Keiretsu Forum Northwest, we are a part of the larger global organization Keiretsu Forum. We're the most active, we're the largest investment group globally. We have over 3,000 members globally with over 50 chapters on 3 continents. So we're a very large organization. The Pacific Northwest was founded in 2005 by my husband, Nathan McDonald. And I've been a part of that organization since he began it. And he invited me and gave me a seat at the table, which is how I began learning about this world. We help facilitate funding in companies in their growth stage. So we typically look at companies that are a little bit later stage, late seed, or like just topping off their seed round, Series A, B, and C. We've been number one by PitchBook deal count for the last 3 years running in early stage. In the last 2 quarters of this year, we've also been number one in early stage companies. And then we've been also moving up the ladder in late stage funding as well. So in Q1, we were a number 11 in late stage funding. In Q2, we were number 3. So I have about 300 investor members. We do about 25 events every month. And we get to the core fundamentals of what it is to invest in companies, and that is to get face-to-face with people. And so as much as technology has allowed us to do things through the web and not actually meet face-to-face or talk to one another, we encourage individuals to talk to each other, get to know one another, because at the end of the day, people do business with people they know and trust.
Now, I don't know what the levels are that you're talking about. Help me understand, like, what's a level 2 or what when it's a late stage. Tell me what that
So it
means.
has to do with progress of the company and also funding dollars that they're looking for. So typically a seed round these days will be anywhere between $1 million to $2.5 million that the companies will go and raise. They'll do little bridges too along the way that'll bridge between the equity rounds. Those are typically done in convertible notes, and they'll do $500,000 bridges sometimes. Sometimes more, typically not. Series A can be anywhere from 2 to 5 million. For at least the companies that we look at that are individually angel backed, if you're talking VC world and the big venture capital firms, you're getting to be in a lot higher dollar amounts where they'll go for a Series A of 10 million. So it really depends on the stage of the company and the type of investors the company is looking for. I do think one difference that we have as individual investors versus the venture capital funds out there that do invest very large dollar amounts is we really like to fund companies that are earning money. They have revenue. They are working towards profitability. The unicorns, the big VC funds, those companies typically burn a lot of cash for a long period of time and might eventually get profitable. And some examples of this are Amazon. For a long time, Amazon burned capital before they became profitable. Tesla is another company that has been VC backed. They, did their Q2 reporting and they lost $100 million in Q2 just because they're burning so much cash as they go and innovate. So those are not the type of companies that are a right fit for my investors and what we're looking for. We're okay with the singles, doubles, and triples. We can take little exits here and there. We're all about liquidity. So we love M&A and acquisitions early.
M&A is?
Mergers and acquisitions.
Okay. Yeah. So it's sort of a different world for most of us.
Yes.
And so we're trying to understand exactly what you mean. So if I'm a little company, a little meaning maybe you want me if I've been in business for a while, I'm not sure how long that is, or whether you're just looking at my annual revenue. How would I know?
So there's many different types of businesses, and I'm a huge advocate of small businesses as a whole, and not all businesses are actually meant to go raise money. Some businesses are just meant to be small businesses, and that's it. And you can take on debt financing or other things. You can get a loan and pay it back over time. You just want to run your little shop and do that. There's other types of companies that are building, technology is a good example to start with. So they're building some sort of technology that they would like to scale up to maybe, 2 to 3 million in revenue and then be bought. And so they want to move on to the next thing.
So about how long would a business be in business for you to say, okay, this is somebody I'll look at?
So it doesn't really, it's usually a couple of years of a development. There's many different players in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and there's different funders at different stages. So there are true angels out there that will write checks for individuals at conceptualization or ideation stage of a company, where literally it is just an idea on a napkin. And then there's other organizations that will help fund after the idea has been baked a little bit, but now they need to go build a product and get that done. And then there's us after the product's been built and they have a little bit of revenue, and then they need to scale up the business. So they need more marketing dollars. They need to hire a bigger team. They need to bring on more expertise. They need to get into new regions. That's when they would really come to us when they need that. A lot of our customers are serial entrepreneurs. And they've built and sold companies before. So they understand that fundraising is a second full-time job in addition to growing your business. And it really, streamlining that fundraising process is really important, because if they're able to close the funding dollars in the period of time that's reasonable, then they can get back to doing what they do best, which is growing the business.
Is it like going to the bank, but in a different way?
No. When you go to a bank, you typically have to put up collateral and other things. These are individuals that you're meeting. Once again, going back to that community and people doing business with people they know and trust. I am essentially betting on the CEO to go execute and do what they say. I am believing in people. I am believing in the innovation. And I'm believing that this will be able to do something someday that will make the world better.
And do you set up a repayment plan then?
There is no. There is no repayment plan. If the company fails, we lose our money. So I've lost a substantial amount of capital investing in early stage companies over the last 14 years. I've also made money. But that's why we really focus on the investor side of things to diversify. So with Keiretsu Forum, every funder in different places, whether it's an angel group or individuals, have different investment theses that work along their lines that they've created. For us, we're sector agnostic, we're region agnostic. So we're really about diversification across the board. And through our large membership, we're able then to mind share about our different backgrounds and expertise and experiences we've had to help make smarter investment decisions about the companies we're writing checks for.
And then do you take a percent of the profit, or how do you
No,
get your money?
I typically get equity in the company. So I'll get stock. So I get paper that will hopefully one day turn into something.
I see. That is
Yeah.
really interesting.
And if it's a convertible note, then that is more of a debt financing tool. I'll get an interest rate. I'll usually get a discount on the valuation when they go towards the equity round. And I'm believing that the entrepreneur is going to hit their milestones, convert their notes, and then get me that equity at that discounted valuation. And then the debt converts. If the company fails prior to it being converted, I'm a little bit more secured in my investment because I do have that little 5 or 7% interest that I've been carrying on the cash I put in over the period of time of the note.
Okay. Well, outside of business, in your just regular life, personal life, have you ever taken a leap of faith?
All the time. Working in this space, I take leaps of faith all the time. I take a leap of faith when I write, a $25,000 check for a company. I guess the biggest leap of faith that I took is making the choice to work with my husband and the dynamics of that. It's not always been easy. We're very different individuals, which is very good for business, but it's learning how to mitigate that work-life balance between home and work and how we think about things. We have very different strengths and weaknesses, but they're all very complementary. It is worked out well. It definitely had its trying points at the beginning.
Let's talk about work-life balance. It's one of those things that I think as women, particularly women in business or with a career of some kind, and with children, which you have, how in the world do we manage work-life balance?
So this is where the imposter syndrome kicks in. I don't actually think I have a very good work-life balance. I did stay home with my children for 8 years. I have 3. They're 11, 8, and 5. And they're great kids. And so I was home with them, and then finding my type A personality, I was paying to work a lot of the time. I was volunteering everywhere. I was raising money for nonprofits. I was investing in companies, and I really needed to get back to work. And when the opportunity came, I took it to run our organization. Since then, it's been the completely opposite. I travel a lot around our region. I'm on the road with our companies 10 months out of the year, 5 cities, 5 days. I travel for work. As I'm here in San Diego right now, I speak at events. And, I try to make sure that the time I am with my kids is really meaningful. So cell phones are put away. We're doing sports. We're doing different things. I'm very present with them. We have a fantastic nanny. I call her Mary Poppins. She is a huge support system to us, as well as our children's school is a huge support system to us too. But the one thing that I would say that has been a blessing is that because I did spend the first 8 years at home, my husband worked a tremendous amount. And he's been able to now spend more time with the kids. So maybe it's just now his time to get to know them a little bit better now that they're older.
So the nanny, is she live-in?
No, she's not. She's getting her master's degree in child psychology, which is amazing. I'm like, my kids, use my kids, It's okay to study them. No, she helps out in the evenings, so it's after school care. So she's still part-time, 3 to 7, but I do have a lot of evening events throughout the course of the week. So there's many nights where I will get home right as the kids are going to bed.
As a mother, what would you say your greatest fears are?
One, that my kids will make the same mistakes I did. One, I have a job as their mom, and I talk about, so it's really good to have protocols when you're running a business, because when you have protocols, it takes the emotion out of a situation. And so I have 2 jobs as their mom. And my first job is to keep them safe. So usually when I'm doing something, when I'm telling them not to do something, 80% of the time, it has to do with their safety. So I'm always afraid something's going to happen to them. They're still alive now. So, it's just an ongoing fear I have. The second job that I have that I also default to in protocols is to make sure they grow up to be responsible human beings. And so I just want them to be good stewards of the planet, good people, kind. They're a long-term investment. And so for a type A personality that likes to check boxes, it's hard for me sometimes to see that the work I'm doing is actually going to build that. But I want them to be kind and good stewards, and they're good kids.
What are your fears just growing up in this world as it's going today?
Oh, well, then there's that. I fear that they won't have grandkids because I won't have grandkids because there won't be a world to live in. I am deathly afraid of global climate change. I have been for a long time. The ignoring of true facts is really disturbing by our government. And really, it's all world players because it's not just the U.S., it's everybody together. The war, the guns, people killing each other, it's all very terrifying. We live in a little bubble in Seattle, and my husband really tries to keep us focused on the good things that we have and staying within inside that. I still expose them to things going on in the world. We spend a lot of time in downtown Seattle. I have a tremendous homeless problem right now. We try to get out and volunteer a lot. I don't shy away from the world problems that there are to make them aware and educate them, but that's why I go out and do what I do every day. Is hopefully this innovation will help make the world a better place for them and my grandkids.
So when you say this innovation,
anything from medical technology, drug development to help us with our healthcare and being healthier people, technology in terms of clean tech. I mean, there's so many different entrepreneurs right now working on all these different problems on how to make the world a better place, whether it's, making people more active and getting them more engaged with one another, or figuring how to take carbon out of the atmosphere. There's lots of different technology and development right now. And a lot of the time what I spend doing is educating individuals that they can help fund this. So if there's individuals out there who just work with their wealth management person at Morgan Stanley, they don't allocate any of their portfolio to alternative investments. Out of all the people in the United States that have the ability to invest in companies and to be accredited, and when I say be accredited, what that means is you make, by government standards regulated by the Securities Exchange, you make annually more than $250,000 a year, or as a married couple, more than $350,000 a year. And if you're making that much money, the government says you're safe to invest in these types of deals, that you can allocate a portion of your portfolio and invest in these companies. And when the stock market goes down, this investment can still be secure. You're betting on people. So there are more investments out there than what your wealth management person is instructing you. And so that's what I spend a lot of time doing, is educating individuals on the power that comes with helping to fund innovation and helping them learn also from mistakes that I've made along the way.
So can people invest in your company as well?
No. I am a facilitator. So my company does not raise capital. I'm a small business. Like I said, there's all different types of businesses. We do have a capital fund. It's a co-investment fund. We do top-off rounds in the companies that move through our organization or move through other of our syndicate partners that have raised most of their money, have due diligence done, and are looking for kind of the last 150,000 in, which helps our investors diversify. So we typically make about 40 investments over 2 years' time. And so we're currently fundraising for our 4th co-investment fund, and that will wrap up at the end of October. We've already invested and deployed capital into 18 companies with that fund. So we'll keep deploying capital over the next year or so after the close. But there's other organization, investment groups, but really it's about individuals just getting out there, asking questions, and figuring out what they're passionate about and what makes sense to them, and building that investment thesis.
Interesting. I'm going to ask you one last question, and that is, if there's a life lesson to pass along to younger people today, what would it be for you?
Consideration for others. I don't feel in this world today we spend enough time thinking about what other people are going through, what they're facing in their lives, different challenges that they may have. If they need to get somewhere, doesn't matter if you're driving on the road and someone's tailgating you, pull over. The person behind you clearly has someplace to go. Why would you stop them from doing that? If a person that you've never met before looks sad, give them a smile. Just consideration for others. I feel the world today is all very much about me and what I need at this moment, at this time, and that's all that matters. And we're all on this planet together, and we need to support one another and be kind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Those were great words. I hope you enjoyed listening to another story of the impact of trailblazers. Visit our website at trailblazersimpact.com and connect with us at hello@trailblazersimpact.com. And remember, you must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be.